we go. Okay. So I need your help today. Let's pretend for a moment that you guys have a lot of money. Tell me how much is a lot of money? $1,000? $1,000? Let's make it $10,000. How about that? Okay. 100,000? Okay, so that's 10. That's a what? That makes it 1 million, right? Yeah. Okay. So we've got $1 million, okay? It's a lot of zeros. There we go. We got $1 million. I need to know, what are the top 10 things you guys would do with $1 million?
Buy as much as these as I can.
Buy, is this Arthur?
Superhero. Buy
Okay.
a superhero outfit.
1. Superhero exclusive
Superhero.
Arthur. Okay. What's number 2? Dogs? You're going to buy dogs. 3. What's number 3? Legos? Legos. Number 4. What else are we going to buy? A car? We were talking like a full-size car, right? Not like the little toy cars. You mean a full-size one? Do you have a specific type of car in mind? Okay. What do you want? A trampoline. Okay. Okay, Lane? Marbles? Oops. Andrew?
A huge mansion for Arthur to play.
A mansion.
Not for me, just for Arthur.
A mansion for the stuffed animal.
Superhero exclusive for Arthur.
All right. 8. What else are we going to buy with her, with $1 million? What do you think?
A drum set.
A drum set. 9. Okay, Molly? Treadmill. 10. A phone. I saw your hand up, so what else did you want? Nothing? Okay. You got one more?
I was thinking like,
What were you thinking?
oh yeah,
Oh, you're going to put some in the bank? All right.
something like, that was something like a car that you could get,
All
a
right.
little tractor kind of thing for Arthur. The superhero exclusive Arthur.
Okay. So my next question, of these things, which of them could you not live without?
Number 1.
You couldn't live without number 1 at all. Number 1's the superhero exclusive Arthur plush toy. You can't live without that? You're sure?
Yeah.
Wait, do you guys agree? No, there's not quite agreement. What could you not live without among these things? You can't live without puppies.
I'd rather live without puppies.
So 1 or 2 maybe. What do you think? You can't live without a phone. No? Do you have a phone? You don't have a phone? How do you live? He lives without a phone.
Exclusive Arthur toy. That's how he lives.
So you can't live without a phone, you don't think? So with $1 million, did you... It depends how big the mansion is. With $1 million, did you help out anyone else besides yourself?
Yes, I helped out Arthur.
The dogs might help out. Okay. So the dogs were helping out. Okay. Was any of this other stuff helping anyone else out besides yourself? How's the car helping someone out? It's. I think he wanted the car for himself, yeah? Yeah? What?
I think you need to live with a mansion for stuffed Arthur. So like it seems like you always have company, like you live in a house.
Well, I'm looking at this list, and I think all of this, outside of maybe the dogs, you guys got just for yourselves, didn't you?
No, you can get superheroes because for anyone.
So you might have shared a few of these?
Because I'll just get like, they'll probably be $1 each, and I'll just get a million of it.
Do you guys know what the two biggest commandments are in the Bible? You know what Jesus says are the two biggest commandments? You ask the audience for help. What are the two biggest commandments? But speak up. Help them here.
Love the Lord your God with all your heart,
And?
mind, and
And?
soul, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
So the two biggest commandments are love God and love your neighbor. Do you think, outside the dogs here, we marked the dogs, do you think the rest of these fit into that commandment?
Maybe if the exclusive Arthur lives next door, you can love, you'll get the love that he deserves.
Okay.
Look at him.
Yeah.
He's a work of art.
So one of the things we're going to talk about today with the adults is it's not a bad thing to have money. You know what? All your parents have money because if they didn't have money, you guys wouldn't have clothes on right now. And we like it that you have clothes on. So we are glad that your parents have some money. And you wouldn't have that toy if your parents didn't have money. So,
But it's not even it came from upstairs.
all right.
It doesn't brought it downstairs.
So money's not a bad thing. But God asks that when we have money, that we use it not just to help ourselves, but Jesus said the biggest commandments are loving God and loving other people. And so that everything we have, including our money, including our toys, we're asked to use those things to help out each other so that everyone is cared for. If you were to change this $1 million, you can have some of this. It's not a bad thing to care for yourself too. But if you were to change this $1 million and make it to be used not just for you, but for everyone else as well, what would you do with it? Yeah? Go to New York, buy food, and give it to people on the street. What would you do with it? You give it what charity? What do you think? You know, just find somewhere to help?
I'd give some of it to like a dog or an animal shelter, and then I'd give the rest to people that want exclusive hospitals.
What would you do with it, Lane?
I would go to that place, the island.
The Bahamas?
No,
Where the hurricane happened?
no.
You were talking about yesterday.
Yeah, like
Okay.
Greece.
Okay. All right. You keep that thought. So,
What's this thought? Explain thought.
what I want you guys to remember, it's not a bad thing to have a phone. It's not a bad thing to have a treadmill. It's not a bad thing to have a drum set. It's not a bad thing to have a superhero exclusive Arthur.
Exactly. It's good to have one. I could save your life with that.
But as Christians, we're called to think beyond ourselves and to say that this money isn't just money that God has given me to make my life better, but it's money that God's given me to make the world better. And so we are reminded that not only are we supposed to love ourselves, but we're supposed to love God and we're supposed to love each other as we love ourselves. And so that God asks us that we share what we have and care for everyone. Thank you guys for coming up. So I want you to tell me if this describes you guys now, okay? Here's the simple description. You're someone who owns a mattress, sleeps on a mattress. That describe any of you guys here? Okay. You're someone who has a reclining chair Anyone have a reclining chair in this room? Okay. You're someone who eats meat daily? Anyone in this room eat meat daily? Yeah? Or generally daily? Someone who you have a streaming service, either streaming music or streaming video, that you use some type of streaming service. That describe anyone in this room? Some of you, yes. Some of you, no. You're someone who enjoys a nice glass of a beverage of choice, at least once a week. You're someone who has good scented aromas for your bathroom. These descriptions are the things that Amos used in his story to describe the people in Israel whom he said, "Shame on you." And he didn't say shame on you because you've got nice stuff. He didn't say shame on you because you took $1 million and you bought 1 million superhero exclusive Arthurs. He said shame on you because there are people who are lying in ruin and you've completely ignored them. Timothy, in that letter, the author there says, you should be content with just the basics that you need. He lists food and clothing. He didn't live in Pennsylvania, so I need to add in shelter. In Israel, you could get away with sleeping outside. Shepherds did it all the time, but you can't get away with that in Pennsylvania. So food, clothing, and shelter. He also didn't live in the modern days and didn't know how healthcare worked quite, so I would add in sanitation. So food, clothing, shelter, and sanitation. So now picture your house. Picture that nice mattress of yours. Picture that reclining chair of yours. Picture all those electronics that you have in your house. And the author of Timothy says we should be content with food, water, food, clothing, shelter, and sanitation, basic medical needs. So take everything out of your house, the dishwasher, the dishes. Take everything out of your house, the TV, the electronics. Take everything out of your house except for the food in your pantry, the clothing in your dresser, your toilet, and the roof. Would you be able to live and be content and happy if that's all you had? If you lived in a trailer home without electricity except for what's needed for running water, would you be able to be content and happy? If your answer on any level is no, there are other things I need in my life besides basic medical care and basic necessities. If your answer is no, I really need to have a superhero exclusive Arthur, or whatever it is, my phone, my car, go on from there, then the author of Timothy says you're probably someone who loves money. I know you don't necessarily think of yourselves as rich people. There are fantastically rich people who live on, is it Saucon Valley Road? Not Saucon Valley. Saucon Valley, is that the one? That's Saucon Road. There are fabulously rich people who live on Saucon Road who we don't compare to. I don't think anyone in this room compares to their level of wealth. And we can see that when we look and we go, we're not rich. But the author of Timothy says, if you wouldn't be content living in a trailer with no electricity other than what's necessary for running water and your basic medical needs, food and clothing, if that would not make you content, you are probably someone who loves money. Okay? So let's admit, I love money. Money's really nice. It gets me lots of good things. I really enjoy my recliner. I really do. Because I'll tell you, I enjoy my bed and my mattress, but when I can't sleep, like last night I can't breathe, I go to the recliner. And the recliner's so nice to sleep on. I enjoy that. I enjoy my big screen TV with a nice sound system that I watch really amazing TV on. I enjoy having my phone. I don't feel like I could live without it. I get your feeling. I enjoy that stuff. But all these things came from money, which means loving these things means I love money. That's a challenge. What you could say about these two texts, the first text says the problem isn't that you've got money. The problem is that you stopped caring about other people. In the text from Timothy, he says the love of money, not money is the root of all evil, but the love of money, not having money itself, but the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And for those people who have money, if I want to tell you what it means to fight the good fight of faith, what it means to live a good life, he says those people, they do good. They're rich in good works. They're generous. They're always ready and willing to share with anyone so that they might take hold of the life that really is life. The challenge isn't love money, but it's how we use our money. And you know what? Before they knew what they were doing, I think this says a lot about how we've taught our kids how to use money, doesn't it? Their first thought before I challenged them was, we'll use it all on ourselves as much as we can. You know, that's how I was raised too in a lot of ways. Not every way, but a lot of ways. And it has been a challenge to reorient myself, to think differently. But in terms of loving God and loving one another, we have to remember that the wealth we have, its purpose is for our relationships. And so remember, it's not necessarily a binary about rich versus poor. Anyone can love money. We know this because there are people out there, the author Timothy talks about people who want to get rich quick scheme. We know people who have no money who still love money because they work really hard to get rich quick and cheat the system somehow. We also know people who are very rich who don't love money. It is possible. I always like to point out, because it's someone you know, is Warren Strassnyder, who is very wealthy. He just admittedly is very wealthy, but he also has used his wealth to help out people in need, to start a business that would give work to people who are differently abled, that brings in 700 plus people every month to work at that business so they have something to do with their lives and livelihood to live upon, that they're not just dependent upon other people. He has done things in his life to use that wealth in ways that have benefited others. So there is a possibility to be rich and not love money. There's a possibility to be poor and to love money. And the question isn't whether or not you are rich or poor. It's the question of, what do you love? So pause and think about your own life, your money, your resources, the wealth that you've accumulated, that nice patio chairs on my back porch and that big screen TV and the really nice computer that I have because I like my tech. Let's admit this. Even this brand new tablet that I really enjoy. And think about, what is the ways in which you use your wealth say about what you love about your relationship to God? So here's the parable. The parable goes like this. There was two brothers. One we'll call the prodigal son, right? We know that story, right? Okay, but that's not the actual story. The story is there's two brothers. One is this rich man who, he's got stuff. And the other one is this poor guy named Lazarus. And they are brothers, remember. They don't know they're brothers, but they both have father Abraham. These are both sons of Abraham in this story. So they're brothers just like the prodigal son and his brother. And Lazarus, he is described, if you read in the NRSV, the Bibles that are in your pew, it says he's laying at the gate of the rich man, and that's wrong. The word in the Greek there says he's been thrown at the gate of the rich man. He's been discarded, left aside, thrust there against his will, thrown down. And the only people who recognize him as a human are the wild dogs. And when I say wild dogs, you have to remember in Israel, dogs weren't tame in the first century. There weren't tame animals like we have puppies today. And so these dogs, you got to think more like your picture of what a hyena is, okay? The hyenas were the only ones who recognized Lazarus' humanity. And they both die. And the rich man ends up in hell, and he doesn't know why. He has no idea why he's there. You know he has no clue why he's there because he looks up into heaven and says, Father, Abraham, go command that slave Lazarus to go dip his finger in some water and quench my thirst, because that's what his purpose is. He doesn't get it. The rich man doesn't get it. That Lazarus is his brother. That Lazarus is a human. That Lazarus is someone who was not just in his life during life, but is in his life during death as someone who is family and beloved. And the rich man doesn't get it. He doesn't even talk to Lazarus. He knows the guy by name, but won't ever talk to him. He says, Abraham, boss Lazarus around and make him do stuff for me and for my family. But then he says, because I've got family. And I don't want them to come down here either. I got these siblings, and trust me, if they don't get a warning, they're going to have just the same problem I have, and let's at least save them. And Abraham says, what? They got the prophets and Moses. They should know what to do. Abraham's Jewish. I'm not good at a Jewish accent, but Abraham's Jewish, and he does that. They've got the Bible. It's in there. They should be able to read it. No. They ain't going to listen, but they have someone come back from the dead. And you know what? We're the siblings. And we have an advantage of the rich man. We've had someone raise from the dead and come back to us and show us that there is life beyond the gates of death. And the promise that Jesus gives is that you are invited and welcome in the heavenly kingdom now. That he's come back from the dead and he's opened up those gates and is inviting you to come into the heavenly kingdom. And here's the beauty and the problem with that invitation. As Nadia Bolz-Weber said at the National Youth Gathering, this last gathering, when I get up to that heavenly banquet and we're all seated at that eternal, glorious feast, there's a good chance I am going to be seated between my worst hater and some racist homophobe. And I'm not going to like that. But they're up there only by the grace of God. And the truth is, I'm seated at that table only by the grace of God as well. Because if I were judged by the same standards as the rich man is judged in this story, you know where I'd end up? And I'm not just saying that as Nadia Bolz-Weber, I'm saying that as myself. If I were judged by those same standards, you know where I'd end up? But here we are at this heavenly banquet. And the question we have to ask ourselves, God has invited us in. Will it be heaven, though, if we're seated beside the people we've done the worst to in our lives? Think about the people you would not want to sit down at a dinner with. Would it be heaven if those are the people who are sitting beside you at that meal? Jesus says the two biggest commandments are to love God and to love neighbor. And the thing that matters for Amos and the thing that matters for Timothy is not the fact that we have wealth, but how we use it and whether or not we're using it to share our love with each other. And we are challenged today to ask that simple question. At the heavenly banquet, will we have used the gifts we have here on earth so those people who are seated beside us are all people who love us because we followed in Christ's footsteps and sought to share love with everyone we met in this world. You are the people who are embraced by the love of God. How will you share that love today? Amen.